into the medieval section.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are here, of course, tonight to celebrate the launch of The Longest Night, the new novel by Lauren Carter. I was exceedingly pestilential the last time Lauren launched a book, so I'm very pleased to be here in person to celebrate her newest. It's wonderful to be here with you all, in person and online. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, of course, that we are here in Treaty 1 territory. That is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Innuit, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, of course, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. This book is a taut and uncanny thriller about one girl's search for home, and we're very grateful to Freehand Books for publishing the book and for making this evening a reality. I'll introduce your host for the evening in just a moment. Following her own introduction, Lauren will read a selection from her latest book before a live conversation. After that, there'll be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions, so please just put up your hand and I'll approach you with this microphone to ensure that everybody watching at home can hear the question in the first place. And I'll be back at the end to explain signing procedure, so stand by for that adrenaline-packed moment. Lauren's wonderful latest is steeped in magical realism, time travel, and genre-twisting wonder, so who better to chat to her about the book than an expert in the area. Seyward Goodhand's stories have been shortlisted for the Writers' Crest McClelland and Stewart Journey Prize at the National Magazine Award and longlisted for the CBC Short Story Prize. Her first book, the incredible Even That Wildest Hope from Invisible Publishing, was a finalist for the Manitoba Book Award's Margaret Lawrence Award for Fiction and the Eileen McTavish Sykes Award for Best First Book. Additionally, it was also longlisted for the 2020 Sunburst Award for Excellence in Canadian Literature of the Fantastic, which is a tremendous award title. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the one and only Seyward Goodhand.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Lauren, for asking me to do this. It was such a great read, your book. So I mean, I was very happy. I'm very happy to be here to be doing this. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Lauren Carter. Many of you will of course know her, but I'm going to give her introduction anyway. She's the award-winning author of 6 books, 2 poetry collections, a short story collection, and this wonderful, exciting, totally unsettling, mysterious book. This is her 3rd novel. Her short story collection, Places Like These, was longlisted for the Indies Book of the Year Awards. Her novel, This Has Nothing to Do With You, won both the Margaret Lawrence Award for Fiction and the John Hirsch Award for Most Promising Manitoba Writer at the Manitoba Book Awards. Her fiction and poetry have appeared widely in various journals and anthologies, Best Canadian Stories, Grain, Prairie Fire, The New Quarterly, etc. She's been nominated for the Giller Prize, the McClelland and Stewart Journey Prize, longlisted for the CBC Short Story Prize a bunch of times, and has received first prize in both the Prairie Fire and Room literary contests. And in 2020, she received the Manitoba Arts Council's Major Arts Award, which recognizes exceptional artistic achievement. On top of all of this, she's a wonderful writing teacher as well, and a really wonderful community member. She runs various online and in-person workshops and runs a series of writing retreats. She's the founder of Wild Ground Writing Retreats, and she co-facilitates Wild Writing in the Boreal, a retreat for women at Falcon Trails Resort. And I met Lauren about 6 years ago. We're both from Ontario, so we have that nice connection. And I've always been drawn to her capaciousness in both her person and in her work, this capacity for warmth and for darkness, and the sort of boldness and the empathy with which she pursues those things in her work, and the risks she takes with the medium. And I think that's especially, that feels very, very true here with this book. So with no further ado, let's hear Lauren read from her book.
Thanks, Seyward. I'm so glad you could do this too. Because this is a launch, of course, I have some thank yous to say. Thank you to McNally for all the support that they do for writers and the community. And thank you to Seyward for agreeing to do this. You should all go buy her book after this too. Freehand, of course, the publisher, who's been fantastic to work with. Again, they published my novel, This Is Nothing to Do with You, as well. Kelsey and Naomi Lewis, who is also a fantastic writer, and picked this up, saw the promise in this. So I'm grateful. And family, of course, my mom, who's dear to me and taught me how to be an artist, really. My sister Carrie, who is a huge support, and of course my husband Jason, who we just celebrated 22 years of marriage. Takes me, yeah, and actually 9/11 was the first time he called me. So 9/11 is significant in this novel, which I think most will know because it's been in the reviews. I thought I could keep it secret, but I couldn't. So just to set up, I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. With thank yous, if I have, forgive me. Just to set up before I read, the main character is Ash. Her grandmother's, she calls her grandmother Goma. Frank is mentioned, and he is her best friend Lee's dad. The doctor is also mentioned. So this chapter that I'm going to read, what is that? Occurs just after she's escaped from the doctor who's been holding her captive, and she's found her way into this new strange world. I should also mention that she has a tattoo of an eye on the back of her neck. Sucking air, how? Her new sneakers' thin soles pound, jarring her body as she rounds the corner onto Main Street and nearly crashes into the blue, red, and white barber pole that's now in the town museum, or will be up ahead in the future where she belongs. Is the doctor's house a time machine, the humming at its core a kind of quantum drive, pushing particles faster than the speed of light, his own sort of TARDIS? She plunges into the protective cove of an alley, bends over, one hand clutching the gritty brick wall, the other on her churning stomach, to throw up. Her head feels like it might crack open, spill something essential onto the dusty asphalt. Withdrawal, yes, but also shock. She did not see this coming. How could she have? The eye on the back of her neck aches, no good for warning her of any incoming danger, she thinks, as she sinks to the ground, realizing only as she feels the grit of the pavement through the thin fabric of her jogging pants that she hasn't checked for needles. But that disaster, opiate addiction and poverty, rife in her hometown, waits up ahead in the future, as does Ash's own life, which has been, what, ticking in reverse for 20 years? She moans, cups her face in her hands as her mind fires. The towers will crumble before lunch. Thousands will die. Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld will set their sights on Iraq. Eventually, war will start and echo and echo and echo. And in her own little town, a peace group will gather every Sunday afternoon near the lighthouse for years and years and years. Her grandmother was part of that group. They held placards that said things like "No blood for oil" and "Don't attack Iraq" and "Bush lied, people died." Then later, when the group dwindled to just a few before finally disbanding, they held images of doves and one single word, peace. She'd found some photographs in Goma's old albums. She used one for the cover of an essay for her freshman writing class. Who is your hero? Goma, yes, but also Frank. A veteran would make more of an impact, she thought, so she chose him. Made him sit there and spill it all, how he turned 18 a few days after the attack and signed up in the recruiting office that is now, then, will be his therapist's office. The irony, he'd said. First Afghanistan, then Iraq, 3 deployments. He tried to keep it simple as he spoke to her over FaceTime because they were in lockdown. This, then that. He didn't talk about PTSD, but she knew, and so she brought it up. For the rest of her life, she will remember his face, the flicker of that grin, which is, was, will be his armor. How he thoughtfully extinguished his cigarette in an ashtray out of the frame of the call while she waited, asking him to go there, her finger on the trigger. Is that why she's here? Is she supposed to fix this, somehow stop it all from happening, head to DC and spout her truth, sounding like a crazy person, hoping somebody will listen? Or is her arrival a random accident, like the accident of her own existence, soon to combust into being in her mother's womb? Her parents seeking comfort from each other, Gomez told her. She'll go unnoticed for several months, her parents lost in their grief, her father drinking, her mother keeping busy, ignoring her body. They'll only become aware in the new year, 5 months before her birthday, June 21st, 2002. A cancer, sensitive and loyal. Just ask Lee, who shares the same sun sign as her, but with a moon in Gemini. Lee, who doesn't exist yet either, not here where Ash is currently sitting, struggling to think it all through. Or is this a punishment for what she'd done to Frank, how she got him to talk about his trauma, to bring it fully back to life so that he'd gone and killed himself? It isn't your fault, Lee told her, but how did she know? Her heart aches underneath the churning of her head, memories coming at her fast, like she's trying to anchor herself in her own timeline, stitch together what she knows. But what good will it do? She's here in an alley on September 11, 2001, somehow. She drops her face to her knees, giving in to all of the grief for this trap, for Frank, for Goma, for everything the doctor has done to her. The enormity of the whole situation swells inside her like one of those inflatable decorations, the Grinch looming over her that first night on the doctor's front lawn. She must focus to pull it back under her control, let the air hiss out, manage the tethering lines until it's something she can hold that won't overpower her. She has to think. She breathes, feels better, lighter, clearer, ready to start figuring out what to do next. Across from her, Y2K is spray painted in fat balloon letters above an image of a face in a gas mask on the wall. In her time, in her own far-off existence, the brick is covered with stickers of local amateur bands that play up and down the North Shore, images of neon yellow citrus and black and white sketch squirrel skeletons. Her head swims as she relocates herself, and then a thought springs into her mind, accompanied by the sudden leaping of her heart. Frank, alive and well in this time, but oh my God, he'd be younger than she is. But if he's here, then also Goma, a fit and active 60-year-old widow in her house on the edge of town, backing onto Devil's Fork Creek, probably glued to the television right now with Ash's parents, who were living with her in 2001, Ash remembers, to save money as they looked for land. The three of them plus baby Zach, her whole family, a 10-minute walk away. All the rules from a glut of science fiction clutter up her head. The prime directive: don't interfere in the normal development of a society or the unfolding of a timeline. She'd give anything for Jean-Luc Picard to be in charge right now, to arrive with his fatherly authority and tell her what to do. Gotta smoke? Someone asks. Ash looks up, and there's the doctor. He stands in the mouth of the alley, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, hands stuffed in the pockets of his jeans, the height of his body blocking the clear September light. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you. So the premise of this novel is so wonderful and strange, and I'm sure you got a sense of that as you heard Laura doing her reading. But at the same time, when you start reading it, it makes perfect sense, and it's very clear and very, very page turning. So why don't you just give us what's the premise? Start us, give the what is this book about?
Oh my God.
Time travel.
Start with an easy question.
Yeah. Ground us. What is this?
I guess I say that the book is about in a lot of ways it's about coming to terms with trauma. But through things that make sense from the activated nervous system that trauma gives. So the distortion of time.
Yeah.
This is a high abstract answer.
Yeah.
But I don't often come up with those taglines.
I know, so we're in rural Minnesota, it's winter, it's night, it's freezing.
Yes.
The girl's in a very unhappy home, she leaves, she needs to just take a break and go outside, and she tries to get back in, and she can't. And then she finds a neighboring house, and she goes into the house and she can't get out of the house, and she time travels across her life from this house. This is the premise, okay?
Yes, that's the
It's
premise,
really,
yes. That's the inciting incident is Ash being locked out of her house.
Yeah.
Which is where I started,
Yeah.
just with that idea of like, girl locked out of her house, really cold, can't get inside, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous, and it's like it does something that I love when books can do this, which is that it's completely unsettling and destabilizing on the one hand, and then completely clear, and everything makes perfect sense on the other hand, and you're like, I don't know what's real right now. I get to enjoy this experience of feeling like I don't know what's real as this is happening. How does this differ from other things you've written, this book?
Ooh, it's very different. None of my other books go into fantastical realms. None of my other work does. This is the first time that I kind of pulled out all the stops and decided I'm gonna embrace that like childlike, I can make a world kind of thing, and I can make it make sense. There's something really wonderfully fun about that.
Yeah.
Even though the story dwells in darkness sometimes. It was fun to write. It was a fun book to write.
It's also a fun book to read. Yeah, it has that energy of like there's darkness, but it also feels exuberant and exciting, and it feels like it was fun to write. And the protagonist is young here, and she's not exactly a child, but nearly, right? Like early 20, What drew you to this younger perspective with this one?
I don't know if I was drawn to it so much as it just happened.
Yeah.
Because I did have the idea of a young person being locked out right away, I think. And I don't really know what it was. There was in the book at some point, she mentions that Goma has told her the story of the toddler who was locked out of her house and ended up freezing to death. And that's something that happened when I was a teenager, and I remember reading the newspaper article, and it did that thing that stuff does for writers, right? It just logged in my head and came out the autumn of 2017 when I started writing this book. And I'm not even sure why she was like an older teenager on the cusp of adulthood.
It feels like it allows you to kind of look back and forward at the same time a little bit, and that she's she's anticipating all of these adult things, but they haven't happened yet. She's lived long enough that she has a past. And this is what's going on in this novel, right? She's kind of bouncing around all over the place.
Yeah, and there was some just simply time stuff, right, that I had to work around, like wanting her to go back to 9/11. So that was a constraint that I had to work with.
And why, so there's 9/11 that she returns to. In her sort of recent present, there's COVID. I mean, why, other than that it's reality that we all know and share, but you're highlighting these here, right? And you're kind of bookending the time here with these collective historical traumatic events. Why were you drawn to do that?
This is a funny thing that I kind of do in all my work. So this has nothing to do with you, was the Rwandan genocide played a role in that. And in Swarm, of course, it was the economic depression and peak oil. I kind of like to have characters who are part of a broader world. So they're grasping at what to do within societal construction. And I think I just like to point out these historical moments. So in that way, it was very interesting to kind of go back to 9/11 and to look at it as such a significant societal changing event, right? That led us here.
Yeah.
And in many ways, it was a massive trauma that created what we're all living through now, right? I just found that really interesting to kind of do the macro micro thing.
Yeah.
And I really like to do that in my fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems clear. There's on the one hand, there's these characters who are locked in these really weird, uncanny domestic spaces, locked in houses, and then there's the big historical events that we all share, and that we're all aware of happening in the background. So in some ways, as a reader, you're grounded in that you're familiar with these, with these events, and then the stuff up close is far more unsettling. You also have a great villain here, and we met him a little bit in your reading, the Doctor. Tell us about this person. Who is he? Was he fun to write?
The Doctor. I'm kind of scared of him. I'm scared to talk about him. Yeah, first Lucille appeared when I was writing. And then the Doctor kind of is in the basement, right? And then emerges. And I did a lot of work. If we talk about like massive societal things and the macro and the micro, I think the Doctor is really those patriarchal forces, that hold things in place and that can kind of foment these massive traumas, right? That just keep being woven through history. So at the same time, he's a narcissist, he's some kind of a magical, I'm not even quite sure what he is.
Yeah.
But he was, I guess he was fun to write. It was hard to write him too, though. And I felt triggered by my own book a few times. Yeah.
He's genuine.
Like honestly.
Yeah. He is scary. Like he's a really good villain. Like he's successfully scary. Everyone else has a name. He doesn't. He's just the Doctor. He's almost like, and he's so vivid, but he's also like an idea. Or, instead of like a person, and he really, really leaps out and stays with you. So I want to talk about the register in a moment, but I think to get there, I want to also ask you about physics. So the book begins with these epigraphs from Einstein and Stephen Hawking, which kind of have opposite views of the universe. So Einstein believes in a fatalistic universe and there's some sort of order somewhere, and he's looking at the large scale, and then Stephen Hawking says there is no fate, there is no order, and he's looking at the smaller quantum scale, I think. And then you just have those sitting next to each other, and then your main character also wants to be a physicist. She's into physics, she's going to school for physics, and that's kind of like it's in the background kind of all the way through these questions, or this engagement with physics. Why physics?
That is really the ground. Like when you start asking questions of, is time travel possible? That's where you have to go to. And so it made sense I wanted Ash to be someone who would be reaching for an explanation, who would be reaching for the truth, even though she never quite gets it. That was important to me, and also looking at all these different interpretations of how we view our place, because I guess because I was essentially taking the ground out from underneath her, I wanted there to be questions woven through the book of, well, what is the ground? And what is time? And where are we located
Yeah,
in this reality? I had to do a lot of study and learning, most of which I have forgotten.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, but the general lesson of your learning is there, I think, which is like, you know, and so you have this doctor, he's called the doctor, but a lot of what he does seems like kooky magical pseudoscience too.
yeah,
But he considers himself a doctor and he speaks in that kind of discourse as if he's scientific, you know, and maybe is. And physics, I mean, science seems like this discourse that's it's gonna be really rationalist, there's rooted in experiment and observation. And so it seems like pursuing science would make reality seem firmer and more objective.
Yes.
Like it seems like that would result from pursuing science.
yes,
But no, yeah, and not because it's
yes,
no, the closer you look, the harder you press. Where is
Yes,
it? Where does it
exactly.
go? What is it? Right?
exactly. And
And
I think Ash has been steeped in that in so many different ways, you know, from all the influences of different science fiction, different stories, different ways of interpreting reality.
yeah,
Yeah, and so then having the world flip over for her, it made total sense that
Yeah.
she would be someone who was trying to find answers.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
on a grand scale.
yeah. Which kind of takes me to, I guess this question of the register, like, what is it? Is this, it's one of those books that's like wonderful to read and hard to describe, which is a great kind of book. Is it magic realism? I don't know. It almost feels like just an experiment with realism, this book, like, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Karen Joy Fowler, who I love, has this quote where she talks about how when you're writing fantastical fiction, you need to find the Kansas Oz ratio.
Right, right.
And that is the ratio of realism to the fantastic to make it seem like entirely realism.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you can hit that,
yeah,
then
yeah.
yeah,
It does that, and then this, you know, this engagement with this real background of this question, you know, these questions related to physics that are actually destabilizing.
yes.
You know, so yeah, all is not as it seems, but that just seems like realism in the way that you presented it. Doesn't seem like
Great.
it doesn't.
Yay!
Yeah, I think it's successfully done, which is why it's so fun. It's a fun ride to be on this book, right? Because you're not able to just like push it away and say, oh, this is fantasy or whatever. It does, you know, it draws you in and impacts you more than that because it also seems, you know, real. And so I wanted to ask, you know, you're experimenting here with representations of reality, like there's time travel and there's all kinds of stylistic distortions. I'm gonna point to one in a bit that you're using. And I wanted to know, this experiment, you know, with the representation of reality, how does it relate to the emotional complexities that you're exploring here? So for example, you have this moment where the doctor explains to Ash that she'll remain pulled to the gravity of her life's deepest pain. So, you know, you have like the gravity of the physical universe and the gravity of this emotional pain. Is it just an analogy?
No, I think it's with trauma, it's very real. Yeah. I think, you know, with trauma, you are pulled to the gravity of your life's biggest pain. And I mean, I just was listening yesterday to one of the Jeffrey Epstein survivors, and she was explaining it so well about how, you know, it braids into the nervous system and then becomes part of every day, right? And so that's why I dedicated the book to survivors, time travelers, all, because time does become distorted. And so I think it is very, very true that in some way Ash chose that day. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also feels like the book does such a great job of showing that it's hard, not only that you can become alienated and find it difficult to know what's real, but also that reality becomes unstable when you don't have people echoing back reality
Yes.
to you. So there's this great moment where Ash is remembering, and she remembers her mother coming into her room, and she's kind of like poking herself with a projector, like one of those science
Yes.
sharp things.
Yeah.
And she remembers her mom looking at her and seeing her doing it, and then like acting like she's not doing it and backing away, and then she's sort of like, was I doing it? And then you're like, what's she doing? You know, like,
Yeah.
if a tree falls and no one hears it, kind of thing. It's like,
And I think that that echoes the distortion in the house, like where she's alone there with only Lucille. And so it becomes that confusion of what is real and what is not real. I'm super fascinated with like cults and I wanted to imbue some of that psychology into the time that she's spending with the doctor, both for her and for Lucille.
Lucille's is like, I don't know, demonic imp side hand. She seems like someone who was taken in by him earlier.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. I don't know Lucille very well. I'm thinking of writing a sequel, and I think she should play a role in a sequel.
Yeah. I mean, it's really fun. You should. I would definitely be happy to read that. I'd be happy to read it. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the kind of, so obviously what you're doing to create these effects of uncanniness that are so fun is you're playing around with your style and with language. And I wanted to sort of crack that. I'm interested in what you were doing. So, and I found that part of what you were doing is you would have these moments that would seem as if they were metaphor, but then you could also read them literally. So there's a kind of like pause where you're invited to see it literally instead of as metaphor, and then you're not sure. So here's an example. Ash wakens, the weight of the doctor on her chest. This time she fights, swinging at him, jerking upright, and feels him something fly away to vanish into a beam of rosy sunlight stabbing through the dirty window. So, you know, is that how are you thinking about a line like that? It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the headspace that she's in.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about the distortion of reality that she's inside and how that would really come to play in moments like waking up and those liminal spaces, to use a phrase from the book. But also the psychological impact, the confusion, as well as the toxins that are in the house. So it made sense to, like, I think in writing fiction, what I most try to do is just get inside the character, right? And think like they think. And so in doing that, I entered that space of like, what is real, what isn't, how I would wake up in this terror of this doctor. And also I was thinking about that that thing in Newfoundland. I think it's prevalent in Newfoundland. We were talking about it actually at a retreat. On the chest, and that had sprung into my mind. So I was thinking about how that would. It's a experience like you wake and something's actually some being is on your chest, so you can't breathe.
Called the hag.
Old hag.
Okay.
So I was thinking about that as well. Like, it might have come through reading folklore or something. There's so many influences in this book.
Well, we tend to, have this idea, like, we tend to have this idea that certain things have no material reality, and like feelings would be one of, sometimes we act like that. Or vibes or ideas. And you're suggesting you're suggesting other, and we don't really experience life that way. You can walk into a room, feel what other people are feeling, and you feel it, it's a feeling, it's there, right? But we usually act as though it's not there, as if those things are invisible or have not really an existence, or.
Yes, but isn't that the writer's job to see the invisible and to put it into physical form in sensory detail
Yeah.
on the page.
That's a good description of what the book is doing. Yeah, that's the register of the book. Yeah. It's taking invisible things that are real and giving them a physical, reality, I think, this book.
I think that's probably my favorite thing to do is to write emotional realms and make them become real.
Yeah.
Again, this has nothing to do with you. A lot of that came through Gromit, like the dog. He became representative of emotional. Emotional.
Yeah, that's very cool. So on the one hand, so trauma, when we talk about trauma, and many will be familiar with this idea that it constantly repeats, right? And that you're stuck in this loop, and that it's omnipresent. And that's often how Ash and some of the other characters experience their traumas, their personal traumas, familial traumas, and these collective historical traumas. And it can, there can be this idea that it's very hard to escape this loop or impossible to escape this loop. But this book is fascinating for many reasons, but one of the reasons is that it explores the possibility or experiments with the possibility that there's a way out.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? What drew you to experiment with that?
Because I think that's what the story is, right? The story is about this young woman on a journey to find the way out. And in a way, I think that's what every story is about. Yeah. So I put a lot into exploring many different avenues, many different options. I'm really interested in books that present choices or alternate realities, like Paul Auster's 4321, which is 4 different stories about the same guy who makes different choices. So I wanted to just send Ash down as many blind alleys as I could.
The way that this house works is that when she leaves by a certain, I hope this isn't a, is it a spoiler? I don't know. I'll just say it. Anyway, the house is great. The house is great. Really interesting things happen there. Okay, how do you hope this book makes readers feel?
Well, it's been really interesting. I've had a couple of reader reports, and for one thing, I wanted it to be a compulsive read, and I think it is. So that's very gratifying. I think I want people to have fun. Reading it. It does have horror content, right? Body horror content. Which I think it's important to write these experiences of women. I think it's important to name them and put them on the page. As horror even, So how do I want this book to make readers feel? Like they want to write.
Good. Very nice.
Like they want to tell their own crazy story. Free. Imaginatively free. Like a kid, Like I went to that a lot, that feeling, like, so when I first started writing the book, it was the fall of 2017, I had just gotten a job in a cubicle. What? Proofreading drug labels. And so I was like, I need to write. So I would get up in the morning and I would just burn it, right? I would just write. For 20 minutes, and I started with that inciting incident. Ash locked out of the house, what happens next? So it was really like a what now?
So that's how you wrote the book? And like these little compressed increments, like
for the first while. And then, I started in 2017, so I was working on it for a long time. I remember the very first wild writing in the Boreal we did, I wrote a lot that weekend. I was working on it then in 2018. And so it was really, I tried to really connect more consciously with that childlike, let's tell a story, anything is possible. And it was great, it was
Yeah.
fun. Then I had the draft done and I thought it wouldn't go anywhere. I just vacillated, should I give up on this, should I not, should I give up? You know, but I kept thinking it was an in-between book, which is something that Helen Humphreys talks about. That she finishes a book and then she writes a book that will never be published. So I've written,
Manuscripts in your drawer.
yeah. And so I kept thinking this was an in-between book, but I didn't have anything else to do, so I just.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
a certain point, you just have to commit, right?
yeah, well, I'm glad you did it, it doesn't feel like an in-between.
No,
No, it feels like, you know, it feels very fun and also very enriching and wonderful to read. Okay, well,
Yes,
we're gonna open it up to questions, but I wanna just say that the book is a really uncanny, wonderful, very fun experience, and
thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I did, just before we start with questions, I did want to say that, of course, my thank yous, I did not extend a thank you to the community and to all of you beautiful people for coming out here and you know, to anyone who's come to retreats and to classes. It's such an enriching part of my life to work with other writers and to write with other writers. So I do owe a big thank you to all of you. So I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
It's not gonna be first.
Hi, while you're talking, I keep thinking of Carl Jung, who said mental health is a commitment to reality, and how you sort of flip that like totally
Wow.
like crazy, all different directions.
Yeah, that's
Comment
great.
on- Any comment on that?
Yeah, mental health is a commitment to reality. Yes. Absolutely, it's that's an amazing statement, and I think look, a lot of that, looking at the things we need to look at, and I think that goes back to what I said about needing to write these truths, right? These horror stories, these things, like for me, that was part of what happened in the book, that was writing bits and pieces of my own truths. That I needed to put down, and that always happens with any book, right? So you're having fun and then you're like, oh crap, this thing comes out of the dark subconscious. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say in relation. Thanks, Donna.
Hi, I just picked up your book yesterday and so I read the first 4 chapters. I love that they're short chapters.
Yeah, lots of people have said that.
And like 4 short chapters in, and it's just like, oh, it's so nice. And you're just drawn in, I can't wait. And it reminded me of, you know, like one of those roller coasters that like it doesn't go slow up and then drop, it just shoots out.
Yeah.
And I just was curious what inspired you to just go with that pace right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's that that thing of starting right where the story starts, like starting with an inciting incident. I think that can give a lot of energy to a story. And I wanted to do that. I wanted it to be action-based rather than having to give a lot of introduction to the characters. I think that makes a propulsive read, right? When the delivery of the backstory is coming at the same time as the characters moving forward, deciding things, making decisions, taking actions. Yeah.
Did you work a lot on the pacing? Like I read an early version and
Yes.
already it was pretty propulsive.
Yeah.
But did you find yourself going back to it and
Oh, yeah.
jigging the pace?
Oh, yeah. I had to, in the earlier draft, she was in the doctor's house for way too long at the beginning, and everybody who read it was like, I think even you said that. Everyone who read it was like, no, no. So, yeah.
The other thing is like when you were talking about the weight on the chest and
Yeah.
being, I mean, that is what he's doing.
Yes. Oh,
Which is
yeah,
a wonderful manifestation of somebody who's
yes,
exercising total power and control over
Absolutely.
somebody else.
yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
especially a
Patriarchy.
yeah, totally, a predatorial man
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
position of authority who tricks you into thinking that this is what you need.
Yeah.
Your little finger was frostbitten.
The character who's his demonic
Lucille.
him. What's her name?
Don't
Lucille.
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 She was really interesting to me, and I'm wondering if she stayed the same, because there's kind of half of her that's with the doctor and half of her that's kind of
Yeah, except even,
aware that this is kind of set, what's going on.
yeah, I think there's a slight moment of indecision in her. Where Ash says, "Come with me," and there's a soft moment in her. So I'd like to go back to that moment, actually. Yeah, in a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she was an interesting character who I think could go further. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Lauren, can you
Hi.
talk about how the novel came to be set in Minnesota?
Sure.
I mean, they're pretty much our neighbors, they're similar to us here, but
Yep.
now there's the whole border thing. So I just wondered if
Absolutely.
you could speak to that.
For sure. So when I was first starting to write it, how did this happen now? It's when you write a book, you end up having to think back years when the book is, but I was writing it as if it was Blind River where I grew up, because I think I'm now writing Prairie, but for a long time I would always go back there. And I didn't want to be back there. I wanted to be somewhere different. I wanted to be in the States because of 9/11. I needed it to have more of a direct impact. And so some of my in-laws live in Minneapolis. And so we've gone down there, several times. And I just thought this is the place where it needs to be. And also it's sort of similar to the terrain of Blind River, which is on Lake Huron. The coast there along Lake Superior. So I did a research trip there and really absorbed the place, and that was where I opted to set it. Yeah. So, who knew that we'd be like, don't read anything that's set in the States. There was some talk, we did discuss, I don't think that's out. I'm not following that rule anyway. We did discuss changing it to Canada, bringing it into Canada, and I just decided that no, I thought it would undermine the story too much because of the whole 9/11 thing. And also there are a lot of references to different American crises in the book, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and Ash is thinking about a variety of different things that have happened, which have relevance starting there. Yeah. It's a good question. Yes, very much, yeah.
So I've only read the first few chapters, and you both keep talking about what a fun book it is.
Yeah.
And right now, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
I can only read like a few pages and I have to set it down.
Yeah.
Because I start feeling sick.
Yeah.
Because of the things that are happening to her, and so I just want to know when the fire starts.
Yes, my sister had a very similar thing. She called me and was like, yeah, I have to know, does she get out of the doctor's house? Like, is the whole book in the doctor's house? It starts to move in different ways once there's an escape. So It is, it's totally, like, I think it, you know, it definitely could be triggering
Yeah.
for people, for sure. And it was, and I wasn't joking when I said that it triggered me, like, it was hard sometimes to work on some of those stories, some of those aspects of the story. But I think because it does move beyond just horror, like, it's not just horror, it's,
No, it goes
Yeah.
it goes somewhere hopeful, like, and yeah.
yeah. And it's, you know, it's a mix of things, right? It's also part love story, it's part, you know, so there are a lot of different things in it, which I think will give relief to that.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Good.
And we do have time for one more question if someone has one out there.
Just a quick question. Usually people write what they know. So what would you say of this book is what you know?
Oh, that's a good question. How much time do we have? Well, I know suffering, like all of us do. I know patriarchal oppression. I know life, like being a young woman trying to figure out who is right, who is wrong, how do I find my way on my own? So yeah, and I think if you start with those things, you can put a character anywhere. You know, that's sort of what fantastical writing is about. There's a truth at the core. You're just altering the dimensions around them. So, yeah, thanks for that.
And you're welcome to offer any closing comments you might have now.
The disembodied voice. It's funny because there is a whole thing in the book about the Wizard of Oz. And John is always the wizard back there. So, no, I hope people enjoy or find something in this book that speaks to them. Yeah, it's been really interesting so far for me to hear the comments because this is completely different from anything I've ever written and I didn't know where it would go. It took 2 years to sell it, by the way. It got rejected a lot, which is interesting. It just has to find the right house, right? It has to find the right place. And Freehand is such a great publisher. They do a variety of work. So if you like this book, then see what else Freehand has to offer, because I think it's important to support our Canadian indie presses. Yeah.
If you like Twin Peaks, you'll like this book. Yeah. As I do.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Lauren and Seyward, for that fantastic and fascinating conversation, and to all of you for your questions and attention this evening as well. You can certainly tell that we have a greater than the median representation of authors here in the audience of the general public. We will be moving along to the signing portion of the evening, so I'll keep those stacks teetering on the table, and we'll move Lauren over to this chair right here. Feel free to get a copy signed before you visit my colleagues at the cash desk. Otherwise, huge thanks once again to Freehand Books, to all of you, to our host, Seyward Goodhand, and of course, Lauren Carter. The book is The Longest Night. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, John. That was great. Yeah.